Often people compare the sons of generals to their fathers. Have you ever felt the need to measure up to him?
Oh, I think I did a lot as soon as my father passed away. Right when he passed away, I remember thinking, what do I do? How do I handle this? And for a long time after his death, I used to always try to be like him. So I would take his sermons and I would preach his sermons. And I would talk to his friends the same way he would talk. And so someone would call me and I would say, hello, man of God. And I would do the deep voice. And after a while, I just sort of realized it wasn't genuine because a couple of them would look at me like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you talking like this? And one day I was listening to one of his messages and he said a few words. He said, your job is to motivate, to encourage, and to inspire. And that's what I've always wanted to do my whole life. And I realized, I don't have to be my father.
No.
I don't have to actually be him because people knew him as him and they want to know me as me.
Yes.
And then God spoke to me and said, Feb, you don't have to fill your father's shoes. You have your own shoes to fill.
Wow.
And once I heard that, I just got a freedom. And I just realized I can be myself. Fill your own shoes.
Yes.
Your father's shoes were there. He's filled them up by himself. And what I realized I need to do now is stand upon his shoulders. So like you mentioned about generals. What a general does is he goes to war, he goes to battle, and he wins certain battles.
Yes.
And so when you come along as a son of a general, you don't have to fight the same battles because they've already been fought.
Yes.
So what I do then is I start where he stopped. And I realized that's what gave me my freedom to become myself.
Yes.
Was to now be what I was supposed to be. That changed my life.
Oh, wow. So why do you think we have this mentality or this paradigm that we need to fill somebody's shoes?
It's what the world expects. It's what people see because I look at someone like a Michael Jordan in basketball.
Yes.
And everyone expects his son to be a great basketball star. And there's so many people like that. They'll expect, okay, they know your father as this. They didn't get a chance to know you in the same way they know him.
Yes.
So they just expect you to do what he did.
Yes.
And in many cases, you can do the same things, you can do similar things. But when you try to be exactly what your father is, the pressure is just absolutely too much.
Yes.
But it's what the world expects. And so because the world expects that, we tend to say, well, let's do what they expect because that's what they are looking for.
Okay.
And we think that we might not be accepted if we don't do what people are expecting.
Wow.
But that's a big problem because when you try to live up to the expectations of other people, you are always living for somebody else. You're trying to please somebody else. And when you do that, that's I think is the biggest path to failure. As a young man, as a young woman, if you're trying to be someone else, be yourself.
Yeah.
That's what frees you. I mean, it's cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
That you must be who you are.
So that's the one truth that you must always live.
Exactly. I love that. That's the one truth you must live. Live your truth.
Yes.
Live your life.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. What would you say is the biggest legacy he left you?
His legacies are many. The biggest one he left me, I think, was his name. And that I've been so grateful for.
Yeah.
The Bible talks about how a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Yes.
And then it says a good name is more precious than rubies.
Yes.
For me, the inheritance was not money because people, I remember we did a press conference after his death and people were asking, okay, how much did the father leave for you? What did he leave for you? And I didn't want to say anything. So I said, no, he left me a good name. I just said that then, but the truth is over the last few years, I've seen that name open doors for me.
Yeah.
I've seen that name take me to places where I would never have been before.
Yeah.
And so that to me has been the biggest blessing because when people hear his name, they have expectations.
Yes.
But what I've done is I've worked to develop myself. And so when you hear that name and then when I come out and I speak and I do what I do as me, people say, okay, this is good. And they go from there. So
Okay. So being a father yourself of 3 amazing young men, what is the one gift you want to leave them?
I want to leave them the same thing. I want to leave them a good name. And I also want to leave them some lessons, things that I learned the hard way, things I learned the tough way. I want to be able to teach them these things while they're young.
Okay.
So that they can grow up earlier than I grew up.
Oh, wow.
Not in a bad way, but grow up as in terms of saying, you've learned these lessons, so you don't have to make the same mistakes I made. Now, I heard someone say one time that that smart people learn from their mistakes, but wise people learn from the mistakes of other people, so you don't have to make the same mistakes. So I've always thought, I would love to talk to my sons and teach them the things I've learned, the things about life, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes, so that they can actually learn and do things faster, better, stronger.
So that they can go further than you did.
Thank you.
Because
exactly.
you don't want them running the same race that you did, because it limits how far they can go.
You're talking to me. One thing I remember thinking one time was, I saw a movie one time where a man had a terminal disease, and so he was thinking, okay, let me make a video, excuse me, make videos to my children and tell them about who I am, so that when they grow up, they can actually watch these things. I thought, okay, I'm not dying, but wouldn't that be great if I could actually teach my sons the things I've learned so far?
Yes.
So that as they grow up, they learn these things, and they don't have to learn them from YouTube or from friends in school, right?
Yes.
From the world.
Yes.
Learn it from your father, who's lived and has learned some things.
I actually have a cousin, much younger than I am, but she said to her mother one day, "I'm a preteen, and if you don't teach me, the world will." She was asking some very difficult questions at the age of 11, and her mother was very uncomfortable. But that statement really allowed her mom to open up, because in the African culture, there are things we hide from our children.
My goodness, yes.
And that, I think, is the biggest mistake we can make
Very
with
true.
the next generation. We don't tell them as it is,
Very true.
and then they go out there and they are handicapped
Exactly.
and at a disadvantage from the rest of the world.
Right, it's very true. Because like you said, if we don't teach them, somebody else will.
Yes.
And so they'll learn about life, they'll learn about sex, they'll learn about all kinds of things from their 11-year-old friends at school who don't know anything.
And now from the social media scene, which has opened up a whole can of worms.
Changed everything.
Yes, it has. It has. So let's talk about now fatherhood. Your journey from faith to fatherhood, because this was a journey for you.
Yes, it was.
Did you ever think it wouldn't happen?
I want to say no, but at the same time, I knew that there were some times where we had doubts.
Okay.
But for me, I was always strong, because my wife and I were married for 5 years before we had our first child. And because when we first got married, I told my wife, no, let's enjoy our marriage, let's enjoy ourselves, because when you have kids, that's it. They're with you for the rest of your life.
Your life is no longer your own.
Right, exactly. You're taking care of a kid from the age of 1 week to 1 month to 10 years to 21 years. So let's enjoy the first year. After 1 year, no children, 2 years, no children. In Africa, or Nigeria especially, from there you get married, people start counting. So if you get married today and you have a child, after 9 months, you're in trouble. You have a child before 9 months, you're still in trouble.
So it has to be exactly to
9
the day.
months and you're okay.
That is way too much pressure, and I think people have way too much time on their hands.
Exactly. They're checking, they're counting. Now, when did you get married? No, so after 1 year, we kept telling people, no, relax, we'll have our kids. 1 year passed, 2 year passed, 2 years passed, and then they begin looking at my wife every time. And they're saying, okay, what's going on here?
And they're not very subtle.
Oh, no. Nigerians, Africans, we don't believe in subtlety. It's just, touch your stomach. What's inside there? What is there?
Too much.
Nothing. Okay, look at you. And then they start saying things, first behind your back, then beside you, then in front of your face.
Wow.
So for us, it was a journey. So I remember going to the doctor with my wife after 2 years. And the doctor said to us, look, you have issues. He tested me out, said I had issues, and she had issues, and said between both of your issues, there's a 99.999 chance that you will never have children naturally. So that kind of hit us like a
ton of bricks.
Truck. Yes, exactly. And then I thought, okay, wait, so 0.999, that means there's 0.0001 chance.
I like that. I like that.
So it's possible. So he laughed and said, no, that's not really possible. We have to do this and do that. So my wife and I said, well, let's go think about it. Let's talk about it. And then I talked to my wife and I said, look, my parents have the same issue. When they got married, right, exactly. When they got married, they were told that they couldn't have children either. And for 4 years, they didn't have any children. But I'm here today, I'm a testimony. I'm their child, and I have 3 sisters. So there are 4 of us that shows that it is possible. And so we said, okay, well, let's believe God, that God can help us have children, that God can do this for us. And so we believed it, and we said, okay, there's no problem. So we stood in faith, we prayed, and then what we did then, we then said, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with medical intervention. So after another year or 2, we started going for IVFs. And we did 1 and 2 and 3. I think we did about 5 IVFs.
That's tough on her.
Oh my goodness,
How
very
do
tough
you
on her.
protect her?
It was tough because while she was doing the treatments, her body was changing.
Yes.
And also too, sometimes her stomach would kind of come out. And some people would say, okay, oh, she's pregnant, yay! And they would clap and they would make noise about it. And so for a while we traveled to the States and she got a chance to just kind of rest and be away from that pressure.
Yes.
So, but it was tough. It was tough because the first one failed, second one failed, third one failed. Then we said, okay, let's go to a specialist.
Yes.
So we went to a specialist before, but went to one clinic that had very, very good results in New York. So we were there and we tried it there again, and this time it worked.
Yes.
So we're so excited, we're so happy. It worked. We got pregnant, and so my wife was very careful. As soon as she got pregnant, she would move to travel to the States. We stayed there for the entire process. Very, very careful. No travel, nothing, and everything seemed to work out well. Then on July the 3rd, 2007, yes, we had our first son.
Yes.
And we're so excited.
Yes.
We called our friends, we called our family, we're so excited. And that was about 8 p.m. at night. And so we went to sleep, and they said, okay, well, the baby has a little bit of a breathing issue. Let's just put him in the NICU. In the incubator, put him in the NICU, and just kind of watch him overnight. Okay, so about 9, 10 p.m. he goes into the NICU and incubator, and all these tubes were attached to him. I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? All these tubes everywhere. But I said, oh, he'll be fine. So we go to sleep. And about 5 a.m. they come in and wakes up, guys, come on, your son's not doing so well. I'm saying, okay, what do you mean by that? So we rush out into the NICU, and doctors are just there. They're working on him. They're putting gas, putting this, putting that, and just working really hard. And I think, okay, what's going on? So we started praying, started doing everything we could, and it was tough. We called my wife's parents. We called my mother. We called my friends all over Nigeria, all over Africa. I had a friend in Jamaica, called him. Okay, stop praying. A couple hours later, at 8 a.m., my son just dies. Passed just like that. And that was, I think for me, the most trying time of my life, the most trying time of my faith, the most trying time of everything I knew, because here we were, having believed for so long, having seen the birth, having seen the miracle, having seen the joy. We've touched it, exactly. We've carried it.
It's no longer in faith.
Talk to me.
You have seen it, you have smelt it, you have held your miracle.
Exactly.
And then your miracle is no more.
And then it just goes away. And I mean, it's just, wow. This is where you cue the music now. Yeah. And we cried. It was tough for us. And I remember thinking, this is going to be tough. How do we deal with this? My wife would cry, and I would comfort her. And then she would stop crying. Then I would cry.
And she would
comfort me. Then I would stop crying. Then she would cry, and it just went back and forth like that for so long. And it was tough. But what happened then was, a couple of days later, we went to bury our son. And I remember that was July the 9th. And at the funeral service, the pastor that preached was telling us, God has a way where he can take the toughest situations and turn it around, and take your pain and make it into a testimony. We said, okay, no problem.
At that point, do you want to hear that?
At that point, not really, because you're just thinking, okay, this is our pain. Let's deal with our pain. Let's cry. But we also want some kind of hope at the same time. But you're thinking, okay, this is not right now. Let me deal with this now. Let me cry. But I remember again that at the service, my wife goes up to the altar and she kneels down and she starts worshiping God.
Oh, wow.
So she's worshiping. So I go up there with her too, and I kneel down as well. And as I'm praying and she's praying, I remember hearing God tell me that if this can happen in America, where they have all the equipment, everything you need to make sure your child is healthy. Because that morning, they sent for a helicopter. And as helicopter was landing on the roof of the hospital, that's when my son died. So everything we needed was there. I remember thinking, okay, if this can happen now, here, what happens in Nigeria where we don't have up to half of this? And that's when God spoke to me, clearly said, okay, go back home and establish a hospital that will take care of women and children and make sure that these kinds of things don't happen to other people.
So your pain became somebody else's solution.
Exactly.
So they will now be able to stand on your shoulders.
Exactly.
Because you allowed your pain to work for them. So would you say that a lot of times the solutions that we are searching for are not forthcoming because we are not willing to be vulnerable with our pain?
I think that's a big part of it, because sometimes when you're in your pain, you need to look at it and realize that part of that process is to teach you something. Part of that process is to help you become better. Part of that process, even though it's hurtful and it hurts and it wrenches you, part of that thing also is to make you learn and change something either about yourself, about your environment, about something around you. And so for us, that was our turning moment. We said we'd go back home and establish a hospital. So we went back home, and in a couple of months, we'd started the hospital. We talked to different people, we got equipment, we got all kinds of different things, and we established Big Ben's Children's Hospital as part of our other hospital. Now, as that was working, at the funeral, after that man spoke, he also said this. He said, in a year from now, God will give you reason to rejoice. I thought, okay, we'll see. But after we started the hospital, a couple of weeks later, my wife says, I'm feeling a bit funny. Let me just go check. Let me just go check. And she was pregnant.
Wow.
And exactly 1 year to the date from the day he spoke, July 9th, 2007 to July 9th, 2008. We had another son.
Wow.
And he's healthy, he's strong, he's 8 years old today, he's doing well.